Happy Saturday, everybody. Welcome to another episode of China Update, where I provide you with the most up-to-date political, economic, and geostrategic analysis on the world's #2 economy. My name is Tony, coming to you from yet another very warm New Zealand summer day. Let's jump in. It's the weekend, so today's episode is very much focused on diplomacy. First up, we begin with the most consequential geopolitical relationship today, that between the United States and China. As US President Donald Trump moves into the first few weeks of his second term in office, speculation about his China policy is intensifying. Amid a tense global landscape, some experts suggest that Trump could pursue a dramatic strategic shift in US-China relations, potentially mirroring Richard Nixon's groundbreaking engagement with Beijing in the early 1970s. But is such a deal realistic, and what would it mean for Taiwan, trade, and the broader geopolitical balance? Harvard professor Graham Allison has recently revealed the idea that the Shanghai Communique, signed over 50 years ago as the foundation of modern US-China relations, may need an update. In a recent interview with Chinese financial media outlet Caixin at Davos, Allison suggested that a new agreement could include a US pledge to never recognize Taiwan as an independent country, provided that Beijing pursues peaceful means for reunification. In an op-ed for the Washington Post, he even posited that Trump might seek a Nixon-style realignment with China, breaking from the prevailing consensus in Washington. This theory, while speculative, aligns with Trump's tendency for unconventional diplomacy. His first term saw him fluctuate between aggressive tariffs and conciliatory overtures toward China. While many assume that a second Trump administration would continue a hardline approach, Allison suggests that Trump could discard the hawkish positions of figures like Marco Rubio and Michael Waltz and instead opt for a pragmatic engagement with Xi Jinping. Taiwan remains the most sensitive flashpoint in US-China relations. While the Biden administration has reinforced military and economic support for Taipei, Allison speculates that Trump may pivot toward a more accommodating stance, leveraging Taiwan as a bargaining chip for a broader US-China agreement. He notes that Trump could make it clear that the US has no interest in going to war over Taiwan, a stance that would align with Beijing's long-term strategic goals. The perspective is controversial, to say the least. The mainstream view in Washington, shared by both Republicans and Democrats, is that US policy should deter Chinese aggression against Taiwan. There is also a general agreement that the US is in a deep structural competition with China for at least the next decade. Any major shift, such as a revived Shanghai Communique, would provoke backlash from American defense hawks, human rights advocates, and Taiwan supporters alike. However, Trump has shown a willingness to upend conventional wisdom in pursuit of high-profile deals, as demonstrated by his direct negotiations with North Korea's Kim Jong-un. Even if Trump seeks diplomatic engagement with China, economic conflicts remain a major sticking point. Under his leadership, both in his first term and now at the beginning of his second term, the US imposed sweeping tariffs on Chinese imports, and his administration is now facing pressure from industry groups to reconsider duties on critical goods, including pharmaceuticals. The American Hospital Association, for instance, recently warned that tariffs could impact access to vital medicines like antibiotics and cancer treatments. China, for its part, has responded with economic countermeasures, weaponizing supply chains through export restrictions and trade policies designed to exert leverage over US industries. The dispute has spilled over into the World Trade Organization, with Beijing challenging new US tariffs. At the same time, Trump has indicated that he is in, quote, no rush, end quote, to engage with Xi Jinping directly, suggesting that economic pressure may be a key tool in his strategy. Beyond trade and Taiwan, US-China tensions are escalating in the South China Sea. The recent multilateral maritime drills involving the US, Japan, Australia, and the Philippines underscore Washington's commitment to countering Chinese influence in the region. Trump's approach to these military dynamics remains uncertain, but his administration's past actions suggest that he could both escalate tensions and pursue negotiations simultaneously, depending on his broader strategic calculus. The Philippines, a key US ally in the region, has been reinforcing its defense posture in response to Beijing's maritime assertiveness. A recent call between the Philippines Defense Secretary and Trump's national security team emphasized, quote, re-establishing deterrence, end quote, signaling that Washington is not backing down from its commitments in the region. If Trump re-engages with China diplomatically, it would require careful balancing to maintain alliances while seeking concessions from Beijing. China, meanwhile, has been adapting its approach to the Trump presidency. Analysts suggest that Beijing views Trump as unpredictable, but ultimately less ideological than many of his Republican counterparts. While Chinese leaders are wary of Trump's tariffs and trade policies, they may see his deal-making tendencies as an opportunity. At the same time, China is doubling down on its broader global strategy. The Belt and Road Initiative remains a key vehicle for expanding influence, despite recent setbacks such as Panama's decision not to renew its Belt and Road Initiative agreement following US pressure. We covered this earlier in the week. Beijing is also leveraging economic tools like antitrust investigations into US technology firms and export controls to counter Western pressure. For now, speculation about a big deal remains just that. Speculation. But as 2020 unfolds, we will watch closely to see whether Trump pursues a bold realignment or continues the adversarial trajectory that has defined US-China relations in recent years. If you would like to come along for that ride as we follow the most consequential geopolitical relationship in the world today, make sure you are subscribed and you'll be on top of the most up-to-date analysis as it's released. If you're enjoying this episode of China Update, it's also a huge help if you hit the like button. Patreon and Buy Me a Coffee links are also in the description for those who want to help keep the channel financially sustainable. Next up, we move to China's diplomacy this week. As China steps into the year of the snake, General Secretary Xi Jinping this week has engaged in a series of high-level diplomatic meetings. This week, Xi met with leaders from Pakistan, Kyrgyzstan, Thailand, and Brunei, discussing strategic partnerships and regional security while reinforcing China's influence in Asia at a time of greater geopolitical competition with the US-led West. On Tuesday, Xi met with Pakistani President Asif Ali Zardari. Both leaders reaffirmed their commitment to advancing the China-Pakistan Economic Corridor, CPEC, a flagship project under China's Belt and Road Initiative. She stressed the need for stronger counter-terrorism cooperation to ensure the safety of Chinese personnel and projects in Pakistan. As we have recently discussed, there have been several high-profile attacks on Chinese personnel, resulting in about half a dozen deaths in the last year and a half, primarily in areas in the south from separatist organizations who view China's presence as semi-imperial. Zardari reassured Beijing of Pakistan's dedication to tackling extremist threats and expressed appreciation for China's continued economic and social contributions to Pakistan's development. She also held talks this week with Kyrgyzstan's president, focusing on infrastructure and technological cooperation. The two leaders pledged to accelerate the China-Kyrgyzstan-Uzbekistan railway project, a key initiative for enhancing regional trade and connectivity. Discussions also covered digital technology, artificial intelligence, and e-commerce, with Kyrgyzstan reaffirming its support for China on sensitive geopolitical issues, quote, including Taiwan, Xinjiang, and Hong Kong. End quote. The Thai Prime Minister also arrived in Beijing this week with senior ministers to discuss trade, infrastructure, and security. A key focus was Thailand's recent crackdown on cross-border online scams, a move Beijing strongly welcomed. The leaders also reviewed Thailand's progress on high-speed rail projects that will link Bangkok with China via Laos, enhancing regional connectivity. The Thai leader will also accompany Xi at the opening ceremony of the 9th Asian Winter Games in Harbin in the northeast of the country. Then on Thursday, Xi met with the Sultan of Brunei, reinforcing China-Brunei diplomatic and economic relations. Discussions centered on expanding investment opportunities in Brunei's digital economy, artificial intelligence, and new energy industries. She also encouraged greater agricultural and fishery exports from Brunei to China and pledged support for collaborative hybrid rice research. The two leaders reiterated their commitment to promoting a multipolar world and ensuring regional stability. This is at least according to the official readout of the meeting. These meetings, of course, all come as China prepares for an intensifying geopolitical showdown with the US and her allies. Okay, that is today's episode of China Update. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. Have a good Saturday, have a restful weekend, and I hope to see many of you for a special Q&A live broadcast tomorrow on Sunday.